Hi, Taste for Truth Support Group. I'm Jules Lane, and we are wrapping up week 9 and beginning week 10. Now, week 9 was kind of a tough topic, forgiveness. This is something that is so difficult for a lot of people, and if you were one of them, don't worry, you're normal. I went through similar exercises a few months ago as I was dealing with some of my own unresolved issues where I hadn't forgiven some people, and it was very painful. And any time that I've done this, it has been very painful to go back and release things that I didn't realize I was holding on to. And so there were tears for me, and I know that there were tears and some strong emotions for some of you guys too. But I hope that you just allowed the Lord to come in and soothe that and apply His healing touch to those wounds, because we want to be whole, and God wants us to be whole. He doesn't want us walking around living like broken people. He wants to make us whole. He came to heal the brokenhearted. And so we need to forgive, because that opens the door for God's healing there. Being unforgiving, refusing to forgive, harboring bitterness and things like that, it hurts us. It doesn't hurt the person who hurt us as much as it hurts us. And so it is important, whether we're reconciled ever with that person again, and Lord willing that be, but whether we are or not, we can be right with the Lord by forgiving. And so that is an important step in this process, and I hope that you guys took it seriously. But there's another aspect to this. Sometimes we don't just have difficulty forgiving other people, we have difficulty forgiving ourselves. Okay, I know that this has been a big root for me, that part of the reason I struggled with forgiving other people is because I didn't personally feel that I deserved forgiveness myself. And so I would hold on to those things where I was upset with myself, and where weight is related, I was upset with myself for being overweight. I was upset with myself if I didn't keep my calorie count, or when I was younger and I was starving myself, I would be upset with myself because I actually ate something. And so I would just be like, oh, how could you? And I held all of these little pieces where I wasn't forgiving myself for the mistakes I was making, because I kept expecting myself to be perfect. And that's not going to happen this side of heaven. I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to keep my boundaries perfectly. I'm not going to exercise perfectly. I'm not going to be kind to people all the time. Okay, there are going to be moments where we mess up. And when that happens, we need to not only ask God to forgive us, but we need to forgive ourselves and quit hanging on to that list about ourselves. So often we're walking around and we're thinking, well, I don't deserve this. And what revealed it to me that I had an issue forgiving myself, because I didn't think that I did. I was reading a book, and I want to say that it was Beth Moore's Get Out of the Pit, or I can't remember. I'll put the title at the bottom. I think it was that book, but I can't remember for sure, where she was describing this being in our pits. Like, if someone came to us and said, oh, you've been set free, like Jesus has, you've been set free, and yet we don't exit the prison because we feel we deserve to be there. And what was funny to me is, whenever I read that, it was like she put it in a story format where it was about a man who just said, no, I'm going to serve out the rest of my sentence, And when I read that, I thought, good for him. Good for him. He should serve his sentence because he did what was wrong, and he should be punished. See what I'm saying? And so this revealed something that I felt about myself, that I'm staying in the pit, or in the prison, in the jail cell, of my own sin, because I refuse to accept that forgiveness, because I refuse to think that I'm worthy of it. And so I'm not forgiving myself. I'm not saying, you know what? You're forgiven, Julie. Now, I can't redeem myself. I can't redeem my sins. That's Jesus, okay? So we're not talking about forgiving yourself for redemption purposes. That's Christ. But we're talking about letting it go and saying, He has it. He's taken it. He's taken my sins as far as the east is to the west. And He has redeemed me. So I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to walk out of that. He has pardoned me. So I'm going to walk out of that prison. And what's cool is that that record doesn't have to go with us unless we take it with us. We don't have to continue being that prisoner, that criminal, in a sense, to sin. So we can continue and walk in Jesus instead of continuing to harbor that. So that was a big thing for me whenever I read that story, and I thought, oh yeah, he should serve his sentence. Good for him for recognizing that he deserves to be punished. Well, we can recognize that we are sinners and walk in liberty. So that is the beauty of being in Christ, is that we can recognize we're weak, we make mistakes, but at the same time, I am who God says I am, right? And I can do what God says I can do because he is who he says he is, and he can do what he says he can do. So when we start to really accept that, and we start to forgive ourselves, we start to forgive others, and then if you read that chapter on overcoming unforgiveness, Beth even talks about forgiving our perception of what we feel like we need to forgive God for. And God doesn't need our forgiveness because he is perfect and all his ways are perfect. But a lot of times we harbor bitterness toward him because we think he's done us wrong or unjustly acted on our behalf or not acted on our behalf when we felt like he should have. And that is a problem on our end. That's not a problem on God's faithfulness end because he is always faithful. He always has our best interests at heart. And when we truly believe that, we start to see that. So sometimes we have to say, pour our heart out to God and say, God, I don't understand why you are allowing this in my life, or why you allowed something to happen to me, or some other person to hurt me, or whatever. We, instead of holding God accountable for that and saying, it's your fault, God, you didn't step in and do anything. And this was a problem I had too, because I reached a point where I realized I was angry at God because of some things from my life. And I was so angry. I was like, why didn't you protect me? Why didn't you keep that from happening? That was not my fault. I did not deserve that, But then I have to go, but in the great scheme of things, God is not going to control those other people's actions. He's not going to control them. So the fact that I'm still alive and I'm still walking around in his grace and his mercy, he has protected me. And I am still operating in his goodness. And he has a purpose still for my life because I'm still here. And the same thing is true for you. You're still here. He has a purpose for your life. No matter what has happened to you, no matter what somebody else has done, God has a purpose for your life. And he even has a purpose for that incident or many incidences to be in your life, because they are going to make you who you are. And I know that's not often encouraging when we're trying to process these deep-seated feelings of anger and resentment and bitterness and all of that, but we need to continually hand those over to the Lord. And we're going to find that a really cool thing happens in our spirit, in our hearts, whenever we do that, because we start to trust God for even bigger things. And it strengthens our relationship with him. So I hope that you guys, as painful as I know it will be, I hope it is comforting to at least know that forgiving other people, whether they deserve it or not, okay, because we don't deserve it. We don't deserve to be forgiven by the Lord, whether they deserve it or not, to continue to forgive people because it is good for you and it is good for your relationship with the Lord. So it benefits us. Anger, bitterness, all those things, those are hard on our hearts, our physical hearts, our emotional hearts. It's hard on all of us, our entire being, when we harbor that stuff and we start to look all sour and stuff. It really does alter your appearance whenever you start to forgive others and just let those things go. Release them, and you may have to release them multiple times in one day, because the enemy is going to he's found a trigger, and he's going to keep pushing that button and saying, oh, what about this? What about what so-and-so did to you? Remember that? Ooh, remember how mad that made you? And then the next thing you know, you're eating donuts because you're so upset because of what they did 5 years ago, okay? So, but you're harming yourself to get back at them, which makes no sense at all, really, if we're being rational people. So we need to take that, allow the Lord to heal us, hand it over to him, and keep doing it. And do a daily check if you can. Whenever you're having your prayer time, Lord, is there anything I'm holding against somebody? And go ahead and release it, because if you've held it for years and years and years and years and years and years, it could take a little while for that to get rooted out. But if you get it immediately, as soon as somebody says, your neighbor says something or whatever, as soon as it happens, you can get it out of there and you don't have to think about it anymore. So that's what I want you guys to do. Continue working on forgiveness. Don't just let it be this week. Now, week 10, we are going to move forward and we're going to focus on the little bitty things having to do with taking thoughts captive and making them obedient to Christ. So we want captive obedience to the Lord. And so that's what we're going to focus on week 10. Keep pressing on. Keep moving forward. This 12 weeks is not it. This journey continues forever. It doesn't just end at 12 weeks, but this 12 weeks we're working on being intentional and being intensive about building the habit of renewing our minds. And I hope you just keep sticking with me. You guys are wonderful, and I pray for you guys all the time. Have a blessed day.